Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In this final City Skylines 2 weekly recap of the year, I'll be summarizing some key points from the City Skylines 2 Journey to Launch mini doc, as well as going over the plethora of amazing new mods that have come out since the last video. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date with all the City Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. And before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that this is the last weekly recap for the year. We will still have the video out on Sunday, and it will be over the wish list that we have for City Skylines 2 in 2024. Now, obviously in 2024, we have things like console that are coming out and mod and asset support, which are obviously going to be great, as well as PDX mods, which will bring a lot of life to the game and the game to people on console. That being said, there are some things that we don't know that are coming to the game in 2024, and that's what the wish list is going to be about. These are things like vanilla access to props so we don't have to open Dev UI in order to place them, or a built-in line tool so that way console players can actually place trees in a really unified and easy line. So if you guys think of anything at all or have any thoughts or ideas that you'd like to see in the game in 2024, please let me know down in the comments, and we might talk about them in the video on Sunday. Now, with that being said, today we're going to start on the Journey to Launch mini doc that was released by City Skylines on their official YouTube channel. Now, obviously, the name Journey to Launch, it goes over the steps of development and how and why they ended up at City Skylines 2. But the documentary really doesn't start there. It starts really at the start of the company, and we get to learn a little bit more about Colossal Order, why it was founded, how it was founded. We found out that Henry was the first employee, who we love over on my Twitch stream. This is an absolute Henka stan channel. We love Henka. He also gave a fantastic little rant, which I will play for you guys right now.
Regardless of that, it was still exciting to see it go live. I mean, it's like a tiny little baby that is seeing the light of day for the first time, even if the baby is ugly as then, you know, you still want to see it like pop out and then, you know, hit the ground running or face first. I don't know. But, you know, it's our baby, and it's kind of stumbled on release and maybe scraped its knee a little bit. But with crutches, it'll learn to walk and eventually run without them, and maybe compete in the 100-meter hurdles or something like that.
So I hope that gave you guys a taste of the little mini doc, and if you guys are interested in watching it, I'll leave a link down in the description, but we're going to go over a little brief summary of what was told to us in the video. So one of the things that they told us was that natural disasters was supposed to be the end of City Skylines 1. The game was only really built to have up to that DLC, and then they were going to start making a sequel or a different game. And they were ill-prepared for the popularity of City Skylines 1, and then it accidentally got stretched out for about a decade. And the technology behind it was really not built for it. They really did not build the game to be stretched out as long as it was, and they were blown away by the modding community and their ability to really bring the game life for all of that time. And they really inspired them to bring certain DLCs and other things to the game. That being said, in 2018 was the start of development for City Skylines 2, and they plan to launch it in 2021. However, like a lot of games nowadays, the game was delayed, and it ended up being delayed for about 3 years because the initial launch window was actually between 2020 and 2021. They showed us some early development footage, which was obviously really fun to look at, but they did explain the development process. And if you've ever listened to developers talk about video games or anyone talk about coding any program, when you fix one problem, sometimes you create another, and that happened quite a bit in the development of City Skylines 2, so much that the CEO called the project cursed. They also talked about how they had some third-party development problems. My speculation is that this is potentially with Unity. There's a rumor, or I don't know if they confirmed it at this point, that they are using Unity DOTS or Data Orient Tech Stack, which is kind of something that's relatively new in Unity, and I don't think a lot of other developers, or maybe they're even the first developer to push out a game with it. They even talked about how these third-party problems left the game at standstills in development while that technology was being fixed. Again, they did not confirm that it was DOTS, so again, that's pure speculation, but there was some sort of third-party technology that they're using in the development of the game that caused the game to hit a development standstill at certain points in time. This, in turn, hit a point where in 2022, they hit their tech review, and they had to basically pick and choose which things they were going to try to hit development targets for to be ready for by launch, essentially. This is why modding and a bunch of other stuff kind of got left off the table, because they realized that the game had been delayed for so long, it had to be released at some point. And once you kind of get it out in the public, you're kind of expected, or like, you know, there's an expectation, at least from consumers, that you have to finish the project, right? And when you reach a certain point in development, behind the scenes, you can keep delaying it and pausing it. But once it's out in the public, you have to fix issues. And so there was kind of this energy or vibe in the documentary where they did kind of hint or allude to that. They felt like they had to release the game because it forces them to actually refine what's already there instead of continually trying to add new things to it. They also stated that they needed a lot more player feedback on what they were looking at in terms of the game. They had become so blinded by this project that they had been working on for however long that they had been working on it for, that even they had become naive to how the game was actually playing at launch. And so they were a little jarred, but also understood a lot of the issues with the game that people had at launch. I found it very refreshing to see them be kind of humbled by this experience, and I never didn't trust Colossal Order to not put out a finished product necessarily. Like, even if they did finish or put out a product that didn't have everything, I still expected them to at least clean it up, which they are. There has been some massive performance gains in the recent patches, and if that was something that you had an issue with in City Skylines 2 at launch and you've been kind of sitting in the background waiting for better performance updates, definitely try the game again now. But at the end of the day, I think Colossal Order saw this same thing, and it's this same logic where there's two different kinds of people. There's the people that just want their hands on the game. They just want to play it. They want to try it. They're ready and excited to play the new game. And then there's people who only want the finished product, and they don't want to dilly-dally or be a paid beta tester, as so many people have pointed out. I've said it before on my Twitch stream, and I think I've said it in these videos again, but again, I think that the early access tag on this game to show people that, hey, this game's in beta, you're basically a paid beta tester, would have went a long way in terms of the hate that this game got, but we have no idea how that could have affected certain contracts, like their Game Pass contract that they have with releasing the game over there, which again is a great way to try the game out if you haven't tried it out yet. They've made a lot of improvements to the game, and if you think that maybe now's the time I finally try the game out, try it on Game Pass first. And if you don't have Game Pass, there is ways to get it for very cheap, so I suggest looking into that if you can. That being said, something that they talked a lot about throughout the video is that this game is built for the long-term development. It is built to last for a decade, which City Skylines 1 was not. I am very hopeful, especially after watching this and showing how committed they still are to finishing and polishing this product, that the future of City Skylines 2 is going to be absolutely fantastic. There was a certain point in time this week when looking at some of the mods that we'll be talking about in just a few moments here, where I kind of just stopped and paused and realized how good and how easy some of these mods actually worked. Like, they just worked. They felt good. I know that's like a meme to just say it just works, but coming from City Skylines 1 where things were so buggy and confusing, and now when I just download a mod, it's got a nice UI, it works, the game feels smooth, I'm getting 60 FPS in most places now, like, it just, I can see the potential that the bones that this game is built upon to have modders and DLC just run absolutely rampant with this game. And if anything, this documentary brought me a lot of hope for the game that I think a lot of content creators who make City Skylines content have kind of been losing. Now, I'm not going to speak for other content creators, but that's just how I felt. If you guys go and watch this or have watched it, let me know down in the comments as well what you guys think. But that's kind of a brief synopsis of what they talked about in the video. And again, before you watch it, just know that this is produced by City Skylines. So at the end of the day, it is kind of propaganda. They are quite humbling towards themselves. They understand and even talked about how they were very naive to how bad the game actually was at launch. I didn't have that bad of a launch experience, but I know a lot of other people did. And they admitted that in the video as well, that, hey, we were really not paying close enough attention to how the game was at launch, and we're sorry for that. But again, please give the video a look. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. Now, let's head over to all of the fantastic mods, and there are some crazy ones, so let's dive in. Okay, so here we are on Thunderstore, and we're going to start from where we left off last week. We left off on the free range camera, which is a camera mod that allows you to kind of just go crazy wherever you want to position the camera. It's much like some of the camera mods in City Skylines 2. We talked about that last week. So the next mod that was released right after I dropped that video was Tree Controller. And This mod does exactly what you think it does. Let's go into game and I'll show you guys how it works. Okay, so here we are in Alberbuty, which is my Twitch city that I'm currently building. This was actually just like one of the default name generations, which I find very funny. But anyways, here we are in the game. I've been messing around with my graphics settings, so if the game looks a little funny, that's what's going on. But anyways, we're here to talk about Tree Controller, and this mod has a ton that it brings to the table. So first off, let's go into the options of the game, and down in here we have a Tree Controller option. So in here, these are the settings that I'm currently using. I would suggest using the settings that I have. So deciduous trees use dead model in the winter. So basically it causes the trees with leaves to lose their leaves during the winter. Apparently this was a feature that, as far as I understand it, some of the content creators actually, like, this was in the game at some point during development, and then they removed it because it didn't work properly or something like that. And a bunch of the content creators that I know that have talked about it, at least, said they were really disappointed when it got removed. So if you want that back, Tree Controller has the ability to do that. You can also disable tree growth. So if you plant a baby tree and you don't want it to grow up, it will stay a little tree for however long it exists. We also have age selection technique. So I would just leave this at weighted. It gives you descriptions on the right with what it does. I leave it at weighted just because that's what I'm going to leave it at. And then there's color variation sets. So what this basically allows you to do is select different color variations for trees. So if you want to create your own color palette for the trees, you can do custom down here. And then I believe you have to make a file for it. I'm not really too sure. You have to use a custom CSV file for it, but I'm not really too sure how to create the custom ones, but you basically are stuck with either vanilla or Yen Yang's custom color palette. And Yen Yang's custom color palette is so nice. If we go over here and look at the autumn trees, when they highlight, they come over. There's a little bit of a bug when you change it back and forth, but when I hover over it, you see what Yen Yang's version of the fall tree looks like versus the generic fall trees, which are kind of over here. So as time plays, you'll see them kind of begin to slowly transition to Yen Yang's palette here, and you can actually see what that bright, vibrant color of the fall leaves that I know of as someone who lives in a part of the country that gets these bright, vibrant, colorful fall leaves every single year. You know, I really like Yen Yang's palette. I think it brings so much color and vibrancy to my city. So obviously we have that as a feature, but there is more to this mod than just those settings. So if we go into the landscaping tools and we go to vegetation, now in here, I have some other mods being used as well, like line mode, but there's actually a tutorial about how the Tree Controller actually works. I'll leave a link to it down in the description, but essentially just a brief explainer for what it does is it allows you to change the age of trees. So for example, if I want to place a baby pine tree, I can do that by just selecting the baby pine tree. If I want to place a fully grown pine tree, I can do that as well. And I can also just place a dead pine tree. But let's say I want fully grown and almost fully grown trees, and it will place a variation of them as I go along. As I move it, you'll see it picks which one it wants. So you can just kind of like scrub around until it gets the one that you want on there as well. So there we go. So if I want to add all of them, as you can see, it'll cycle through all of them, and then you can just place whatever one you want. Or when you're using the line tool, for example, it will vary which ones actually get placed. Now, there's a bit more to this mod as well. So there's also a place multiple, which allows you to do a forest brush. There's also tree sets. So it has some pre-made sets. So these are over here. There's different sets you can choose from. I believe these are the pine tree set. And then this right here is the deciduous tree set with leaves that actually fall. So depending on where you want to place them, like if you want to place them on a mountain, it will only give you the pine trees here. And then there's also, I believe this is the bushes as well. So you can paint whatever you want down with those different sets. You can also select region, and I'm not sure how the regions affect it, but there is that. The next tool mode is actually a replace mode. So if we want to make it so that all of these trees are actually dead, we can brush over them and it will kill the trees. Or you can make them all fully grown if you'd like, or a variation of all of them. And it basically just randomly kind of like resets the forest so you have a bit more variety around in your forest area. Now, something really cool that you can do is if you select this button down here, obviously we can do with this first button, you can select individual trees and you'll see it, highlight it, and it'll change how you want that. But let's say we want to kill all of the trees at a specific building. So let's select the building tool and we can go over here to this apartment building, let's say. And we can actually select the building. And as you see, it will kill all of the trees on the lot when we select this lot building button. So if this button right here allows you to change the age of the tree on the lot, this button right here allows you to change the type of the tree on the lot. So for example, if we go back here and we make these all adult trees instead of dead ones, right? We'll notice that they are probably the chestnuts or apples, some other kind of round deciduous tree. Let's say we wanted to make these spruce trees. So we can actually do that by selecting the building button, or we can do the individual tree button. I think that works on the buildings. Yes, it does. And we can change just that tree over to the spruce. And then we want this one to be a birch. And then let's say we want every single tree on, let's find a lot with some trees. Those are all hand placed. All right. Let's see. We'll just do the school. So the school has a bunch of trees on its lot. We can do an entire building. Obviously, here's all the building, and we can change them all over to birch with one click. And then we can go back over to the age button and make them all dead. There we go. So anyways, this mod truly does allow you to control all of the trees on your map. It is absolutely sick. I have now killed all the trees on my map because that's what this button does. And yeah, pretty crazy stuff. It's pretty cool. And if you guys are looking for more ways to control trees and the actual pre-made buildings on your map, this is the way to do it. On top of Tree Controller is another new mod called Anarchy. This basically does what extended hotkeys does with its hotkey to turn on Anarchy. It basically enables the bypass validation results from developer mode, but it gives you a nice little UI button to click, and it's always there. It gives you a nice cool symbol, and with the help of Bad Peanut, there's also a fire chirper. On my screen, it is a fire bear because Bad Peanut made me some custom bear assets, and I love them for it. Next up is Info Loom, and this mod gives you a ton of information. Now, normally I would go in game to show it to you guys, but thankfully they included a lot of the screenshots on the Thunderstore workshop page. So there is this new demographics page where you can actually see a full breakdown. I mean, this mod just gives you tons of info. So essentially what this one does is it gives you a full breakdown of demographics for things like tourists, citizens, commuters, and the age range and how many exist in your city in that range, which is absolutely bonkers. The thing I really like is the actual demand graph, because it actually shows you what a precise number for the demand bars that exist on the bottom of the screen, as well as some other different things, so like the happiness, the taxes, how many people are unemployed in each different bracket, and things like that. It's very fascinating stuff. There is just a ton of stuff. So if this is something that interests you, you can do that. Also in the code files, you can go through and change the surplus and deficits to actually instead display commercial and consumption. You can't display both, so you will have to pick and choose whether or not you want to see commercial and industrial split, or if you want to see surplus and deficit split. But if that's something that interests you for managing your simulation, you can totally go ahead and do that. Next up is static transport views. This basically just allows you to keep a lot of your transport stuff just visible and stuck on screen if you need it or want it while managing different aspects of your city. Pretty useful. I just downloaded it. I haven't even really played around with it, but it is there for you. Something that I have downloaded and I haven't really tested around to see how well it's working yet is renter and land value policy. So essentially what this mod does is it allows the certain policies to be changed to actually affect land value. So for example, speed bumps actually will decrease the land value in your city as a way to help mitigate the high rent issues that you have in your city. It also makes some balance changes and tweaks where if renters can no longer pay the rent, they're automatically evicted, and existing buildings are not destroyed and remain in place, so they'll remain abandoned but they won't destroy themselves. It's just basically some nice quality of life balance changes around the whole high rent issue, and I really like it so far. Also, City Planner Plays has 2 of his playlists up on Thunderstore now as well for in-game radios. There's the Young Linden playlist and the Northwoods playlist. I'm from part of the US that identifies as the Northwoods, so I also really like the Northwoods music, and it's actually all of the music that you hear in the background of my videos is from the Northwoods playlist, so big fan of the Northwoods playlist. Highly suggest that one. CityRat also has a couple new playlists. There is the alt-rock playlist as well as their EDM playlist. CityRat has been going crazy on some of these playlist radios, so if that's something that interests you, give those a listen. There's also a land value overhaul mod. Initially, this had some issues with it. I think that they've been fixed, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But there is another mod for managing land value. If that's something that interests you, read through it. But I haven't had a chance to look at that one yet. I'm sorry. Next up is realistic density mod. Now, this one essentially is just realistic pop from City Skylines 1 into City Skylines 2, and it basically just rebalances how dense your city is. It really makes it a more dense and alive space. So if that's something that interests you, give realistic density a look. Obviously, we have image overlay light if you're making realistic cities. Then there is cinematic video renderer. Now, if you notice from the beginning of today's video, you'll notice that I did some cinematic shots in the beginning, and those were taken using the cinematic video renderer. Essentially what it does is you go into the cinematic camera mod and you go into the keyframe, or the graph editor, essentially is what you do, where you set the little points and then your camera animates. And then when you press play, it instead will basically slow your game down, and you'll see it'll start to chug. But what it's doing is it's syncing up the frame times with a recorder. And so you can record 60 FPS fluid videos no matter the performance of your machine. The only limiting factor is the recording time based on your computer. Now, it will record at your computer's resolution. However, there are plans to add things like a 4K toggle option or a 1080p toggle option if you don't want to record at 4K. Otherwise, it records an MP4 file straight to your regular video folder in your computer. I am a huge fan of this mod, and if you want to make content or make cool cinematic shots of your city just for sharing and posting somewhere like Reddit or on Twitter or something like that, you can do that here. There's also abandoned building remover. I am not the biggest fan of this because abandoned buildings don't necessarily mean that they're not going to have new people move into them, but it will automatically demolish them. So it's basically kind of like automatic bulldozer from City Skylines 1. If that's something that interests you, that's right there for you. And the last mod I want to talk about is brush size unlimiter. This basically allows the maximum size of the brushes for the brush tools in the game to be expanded. If you wanted to go into dev mode now, as you can see right here in the developer UI, you can see that there's different brush options, which I talk about in a different video, which I'll leave up in the annotations right now. So you can actually change and mess around with some different brushes if you so choose. But as you can see, this will severely increase the the size of your brush, which is really awesome. Now, other than brush size unlimiter, there really hasn't been that many generically useful mods that have come out recently just because of the holidays. So I expect a lot more will be coming out post New Year's. So be ready for that video on the 7th, and this Sunday, be ready for my next City Skylines 2 video where we go over the City Skylines 2 2024 wish list of new features and additions to the game. Even if you guys have some DLCs, please let me know what you're looking forward to down below. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a great holiday season, and I hope you guys all enjoy the new year as it rings in on Monday. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done this past year for me in terms of my content journey. Appreciate all the subscriptions, everybody tuning in and watching, and I just appreciate that you guys appreciate the hard work and the content that I put out. So anyways, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.